Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be reviewing the SRM 255L GT. It's been a minute since I've had an SRM knife on the channel, and I've got to say I've always been pretty darn impressed with SRM's or SRM's. That's who SRM is. They offer a lot for your money in my personal opinion. This is a super lightweight knife, great for EDC in my opinion. It's a good size for EDC. This one's coming in at 7.5 inches overall. It has a 3.2 inch drop point blade. And this one is in 10CR 15CO MOV, which is equivalent to VG10. It's hardened to 58 to 60 HRC. Now, would I've liked to see a little bit higher? Yes, but in my experience, SRM does a fantastic job with their heat treating. We're going to check it out in just a second, but VG10 can take a very keen edge. It can handle very thin edge bevels, and it's highly corrosion resistant. I like VG10, especially if the price is right. Your blade has a nice raw stone wash finish to it. Nice little top swedge up here for some flair. No jimping, but I don't really mind that. He's got a nice little flat spot to rest your thumb. You have a pretty fine tip there, great for a piercing task. It is going to be a little high to do drag cuts. You're going to have to come up almost to a 90-degree angle to use it. You can do it if you really want to, but it's going to be a lot easier just to use that belly unless you need to get really intricate. You have a perfectly executed sharpening choil. There's your plunge where my fingernail is right there, so you can have all this sharpening light before it'll even think about widening at the heel. Your thumb studs stay out of the cutting path, as you can see there. Your blade stock thickness is coming in at 0.10, and you have a nice high flat grind. This one comes down nice and thin to around 13 thousandths behind the edge. But what makes it even nicer is this one is sharpened to 16 degrees per side. So this thing should be very slicey. Let's find out. Man, I forgot how good SRM or SRMU does with their heat treating and their geometry. And I knew there was a company, I couldn't remember, but they do cooled sharpening, so you won't get any burnt edges from SRM or SRMU. So I'm guessing they either do like water cooled wheels, or I don't really know how they do it, but that's what they claim on the site, and I believe it because of how well their edges perform. You know, a lot of production companies will sharpen on a belt grinder and it overheats the actual apex, causing it to kind of ruin the heat treat on the apex, making it very brittle, but not so here. This knife had a lot of bite to it. It was very sharp, and I think one of the things that's making this one slice so well is the fact that the edge bevel on this one is 16 degrees per side, and it's got an exact 16 degrees on both sides. I hardly ever see that anymore. Usually it'll be like, say, one side will be 16 and the other one will be 21. And that's so common because they're hand sharpening and they're not the left side, they're not holding it as steady as they think, which, you know, I can fix it, but it's always nice to get a perfect bevel from factory, especially at this price point. This belly is making this work very easy, not to mention that geometry I was talking about, along with a very sharp knife. So every test I put in front of this one, it breezed through it without any problems whatsoever. And I gotta say, I have one more to test from them. I think they might be sending some other ones over, and I'm excited to check it out because, you know, this one's in a different steel. This one's in VG10. The other one that I'm currently testing is in D2. And I want to see how that one performs. Now, this tip is a little high to do a drag cut. You almost have to come up to a 90-degree angle. So you just got to use that belly to do the drag cut, which is perfectly fine. I do it all the time. And other than that, though, all the dense materials, no problem whatsoever. Look how fast it goes through the denim. Yeah, very, very impressed. And this one was an absolute joy to test. Man, I gotta say, this one performed great. It was comfortable, it performed great, and I love seeing these cooled, sharpened edges. If you've never had anything or you don't know, your edge is gonna last a lot longer. Usually, You have like fatigue steel because they sharpen it in a belt grinder, and then it takes you about 3 to 4 sharpenings to get rid of that steel to where you can have max edge retention. So these start out probably as close as you're going to get to max edge retention, depending on how they're actually doing it, with maybe say water cooled wheels, or I don't know, but it definitely shows. And I thought this one performed great. I forgot how much I enjoy VG10, N690, all those steels that, we're starting to see a little bit more now. I really enjoy them. They're a lot better than people give them credit for. Now, let's take a look at the deployment on this one. So you have dual thumb studs, as you can see there. This is riding on cage ceramic bearings, and it's got a nice snappy action. This is a crossbar lock, and as soon as you release it, this thing is fall shut. Very nice. You can reverse flick if you want. You can use the crossbar if you want. You can slow roll it if you want. Yeah, very silky smooth. One thing I did mention to them is they asked me if there was anything I would change about the knife. And I did say, even though I don't mind the tension on these Omega springs, I do think it could be just a touch stronger. I mean, I can flip it out, but I can flip out, my Benchmade's like that as well. It's not terrible, just light shakes like that. From maybe shaking around the pocket or taking it out of the pocket is fine. But if I give it a good little shake, it comes out. So I think they could either give us some Omega springs with a little bit more tension, a little bit thicker Omega springs, or they could do the adjustable crossbar lock and put some extra holes to where you can push that Omega spring in a little bit more to give us a little bit more tension. That would work as well. And they said they would look into it, so we'll see how that goes. But like I said, as it sits, I'm good with it. Your thumb studs are comfortable. They got like the volcano grip there. They're easily accessible with the left hand also, no problem. And being this is a crossbar lock, this is a completely ambidextrous knife because you can also reverse the pocket clip, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Now let's take a look at the handle area. So I have these ivory colored smooth G10 scales, but I don't know if they sandblast these or not, but I don't know if you can hear that. They have a slight bit of texture, and by the looks of it, see how you can see the grain right here? Part of that from the milling process to get these contoured scales, but it almost feels like they're sandblasted. If you've ever felt sandblasted G10 or micarta, you know what I'm talking about. It has just the right amount of traction without having to put a bunch of texture on it and without making it overly aggressive. Now, I will say, if you do buy the ivory G10 one, it does look nice, but if you want to keep it looking pristine like this, you're going to have to clean it with either some rubbing alcohol or some Dawn dish soap after you get it all. Like after I finished my testing, this was getting pretty black just from my gloves and just other gunk and grime. It's pretty quick and easy to clean, so it's not that big of a deal, but you could either do that, or being that these are ivory, they would be easy to writ dye. You could do that also, and they have colored ones already too. But as far as the ergos go, you got this section right here. It kind of swells right here, and you have the contouring on these scales. Plus, this one has the mono chassis. So your liner, which is just this little bitty piece of metal right here, it's a folded piece of metal, which is going to make it stronger. And then you have these thick slabs of G10. I can't flex these G10 scales. They're thick enough. And this metal piece right here comes to about right here. So that, and just having G10 here, makes this thing super lightweight at 2.47 ounces. I think that is fantastic. That's well under the ounce and inch per blade. Some people care about that. I don't, but if you do, there you go. In this pull grip right here, it's nice and comfortable also, at least for my medium-sized hands. And then the reverse grip, it's definitely comfortable because this is rounded over also. Me choked up, I still got a good bit left over, so if you have large hands, it should fit just fine. I'm not too sure about XL hands, but I think you'd probably be okay. If you're a lanyard person, you do have a pop of color with like a brass looking lanyard post back here. It's just basically your standoff, but the way they encapsulated it into this G10 backspacer, you could definitely tie a lanyard around that. You can see you have a little pop of color with a pivot collar right there, the SRM logoed pivot there. You have a Torx T8 for your pivot, and unfortunately they went with T6 for your body screws. I would have much preferred to see them at least T8, so you can have all the same, so you don't have to swap out drivers. Makes things a lot easier. And plus, T6 have a much greater chance of stripping out, even though I've taken apart several of SRM knives and I haven't had an issue yet. If you have, you can let us know in the comments, but so far, so good for me. I usually take my time, especially on T6, and take all the safety measures you can. Well, if you look right here, it's kept pretty darn clean, and you have this deep carry pocket clip. Now, one thing I was not happy to see is anytime you see these wraparound clips, I get worried because sometimes your material, your pants can get caught to the back right here, but being this one's close right here, I haven't had any issues. And if you look right here, you have a little slot right there for the reverse of this clip, and you don't need any tools to remove this clip and swap it around. So basically you pinch the prongs together and then you slide it up. I usually push it up with my other finger. You see how they got the little notches? That locks it into place once you get beyond that little spot. And then there's your clip. And then all you have to do is come over here to the opposite side, slide it on, and then lock it into place. But I'm not going to carry this one lefty, so I'll bring it back to the right side. Pretty genius little idea there. You know, it makes swapping that clip over, which is kind of nice for somebody like myself that I'm always carrying at least 2 knives because I'm usually carrying one that I want to carry, and then usually it's one that I'm carrying for review. Sometimes I got 2 that I'm carrying for review, and then it would be nice sometimes to be able to swap this clip over quickly so I can carry this one, say, in the left pocket and the other one in the right. You know what I'm saying. And they didn't leave out my lefties, especially being that you have a completely ambidextrous knife. Like I said, you have very minimal construction here that helps bring down the weight, and that mono chassis, you can see that's all you have for stainless steel. Then you have the cutout for the opposite side clip. That's how they were able to keep this weight down. Let's see the balance point. Yeah, look at that. Absolute perfection. And you know, if you hear 2.47, but it's actually going to feel like it's maybe an ounce and a half, you know, in use when it's open because it's so well balanced. Your lockup on this one, no movement in any direction, and that's exactly what you want to see. There's no slide up and down from the crossbar lock. Excellent job. Now for some quick size comparisons. It's in the middle of the Ontario Rat 1 and 2, and it's very similar in overall length to the Volstead Raccoon, and it's a good bit bigger than the QSV Penguin. And lastly, it's just a hair shorter than the Kaiser Mini Mystic, and it's a hair longer than the Kaiser Dogfish. Now, being that absolutely no knife perfect, what are my nitpicks and complaints? I've already talked about it. The only thing that I would probably change on this is add a little bit of tension to the Mega Springs, or add some extra holes in front and in back. So if you wanted to increase the tension or decrease the tension, you could. And also, I would have loved to see at least T8 hardware throughout. That way you could keep the same driver. Makes things a lot easier, and then you don't have to worry as much about your screws tripping out on you. But they still have to be quality screws. But that said, this knife right here comes in at $58, and you know, I think this is an outstanding value. This thing performed great. It's got a nice thin geometry to that blade. They also gave us a thin edge bevel. You know, you don't hardly ever see those two things put together. You know, Civivi does a good job of thinning out their grinds, but then they give us like a 24 degrees per side edge. It doesn't make any sense. So this one was an absolute joy to test. I'm currently testing their D2 model, and so far that one has been great as well. You have a fantastic action. This one was super comfortable because of the contouring. The clip stayed out of the way of my palm. I think it's a good looking knife. The VG10 steel holds up nicely, and it can take a screaming sharp polished edge if you want to. You can also leave it nice and toothy. However you want to do it, it can take it. There's very thin edges, and I think that's why they were able to put that 16 degrees per side edge bevel on here. And this is not the first knife that I've gotten that they've had a nice thin edge bevel. So yeah, I can highly recommend this one. And if you are interested in picking one of these up for yourself and you want to help support the channel, you can use my links that'll be down below that help support the channel. You can use my links that will be down below that helps me pay for my testing materials. I can't thank you enough. If not, no sweat at all. So that's going to wrap up today's video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below, and I'll do my best to get back with you. I hope every single one of y'all is having a fantastic day today. And remember, keep your blades sharp, smile more.